What's going on, everybody? So today I'm finally doing an Arms Warrior guide for PvP, primarily looking at Necrolord Arms Warrior, but I'll go over the other covenants and what their strengths are later in the video. For those who don't know me, my name is Mud. I'm a 3200 rated rank 1 Arms Warrior, and I've been streaming over on Twitch at twitch.tv/Mudcx. And recently we just hit 10k follows over on Twitch, which is insane. And I did promise everybody that I'd do a warrior guide at 10k. So there's going to be timestamps in the description if you want to skip around. But let's jump right into it, starting with race. Alright, so race. So we're logged out right now, and let's just check the races and what are actually good. What are some alternative options? But starting, let's just go with Orc. Obviously, Orc is the best, in my opinion. It's what I play. It's what I think is the best. It's maximum class fantasy. Being an Orc warrior, having the reduction to stuns, and having Blood Free for more burst is just, it's too much to pass up, in my opinion. That's why all my warriors are Orc except for one. And there's an Alliance. So for Alliance, Human. Okay, I think Human's just the best. You have a stun trinket, which means that some games you can play double damage trinkets. They also have like added stats or whatever, which is better. I think Orc is probably better. They're more of different, they're just like different play styles, and whatever you want to pick is really up to you at that point. I think Orc is better. So what are some alternatives? If you don't want to play Orc, you don't want to play Human, there are some. So let's just start with the Alliance. So there's a few alternatives for Alliance. I don't think they're as good as Human. I think Dwarf might be kind of cool, having a basically a dispel for yourself for Mudcx and all that. Has a damage reduction, which isn't that important as a warrior because you're already pretty tanky. So I actually think Dark Iron Dwarf is better than Dwarf because it has the option to use it as a damage increase and not just like a defensive. You can also dispel Mudcx with it, which is huge. But my personal favorite is the Gnome. I have an Alliance warrior and I made it Gnome. You don't get as much value of Escape Artist as much this expansion because everybody plays Avatar. You have another Root Break, but being Gnome kind of feels nice into some rogue mages. You can press Avatar and Bladestorm before Nova, and you can just instantly get out of Root. It's actually pretty good. So, but I still don't think it's as good as Human. So for Horde alternatives, there's really not any. I mean, no, there's really not anything. I think Orc is just so much better than all the other races, in my opinion. If you're Horde and you're not Orc on a warrior, you're kind of trolling. So, Orc for Horde, Human for Alliance. There's the races. Okay, next up we got talents. So, I don't want to go over every single talent and why it's good, because I don't want this to make it too long of a video, but this is the main cookie cutter build you're going to go for talents, and this is what I'll play most games, and I'll explain which ones are good and ones that you might want to switch out in some situations. So, starting with 15 row, sudden death 100%. Okay, the other two are not even good in comparison how overpowered sudden death is. This is where you see me, the big fucking execute at like full health, is because you get a sudden death proc, and it seems to proc very often early in the game. So you could be stacking, your first couple hits and you'll get a proc of execute, which lines up perfectly with all your damage cooldowns. It's insane. Also, something to mention, this expansion, I don't know why they changed it, because it wasn't like this last expansion. They actually nerfed it, but it works with Death Sentence, which is insane. So when you proc sudden death, it's basically a free charge. And they nerfed that in BFA, but going into this expansion, they unnerfed it for some reason. But so on top of being huge burst and sometimes a free charge, it's too good to pass up. I never changed out of it. So for 25 row, Stormbolt. I mean, all three of those are good in some situations, but Stormbolt is what your go-to. You need a stun on warrior. It's what lets you set up the cooldowns, and it's just way too good to pass up. You can use it defensively to stop CC. You can use it offensively to create a go. It's incredible. Sometimes I'll play Impending Victory. Impending Victory is actually really good. Not in threes. In threes, always Stormbolt. But Impending Victory is not actually too bad in twos when you're playing double DPS like Feral Warrior. Some teams having impending victory is incredible healing. This thing paired up with a conduit is super good. Sometimes double time's okay in 2s versus, some BM hunters, I guess, but Stormbolt is your go-to, and you can try these other ones for some other teams and see how you like it, but I think Stormbolt is just too powerful. All right, so the level 30 row, this is the controversial one. So Fervor Battle is bad, okay? Fucking ignore this. So it's Massacre and Rend. Which is actually better? It kind of depends on what Covenant you are. I think if you are Kyrian or Necrolord, you can try Rend into like heavy plate teams. I don't think it's good in 3s. You don't get to play it that much in 3s because the games are so fast paced. But in 2s, it's actually not bad as Necrolord. I've been playing a lot in 2s versus like Arms Warrior teams, and it does decent damage. You can actually do some pretty good single target with it with another Legendary as well. But I think most of the time, people are just Massacre. The games are so fast, like sometimes you don't even get use of Rend, and they just die instantly. So being able to execute at 35% is insane. Execute does so much damage this expansion, and it just makes Death Sentence even stronger. Being at a higher percent, you can use it more often. So 35, other 2 are trash. Defensive stance, 100%. This is your best cooldown. Pre-D'ing a go is insane. If you're taking heavy pressure, sitting D stance is also really good for your healer. But I think a lot of warriors need to watch how long they're sitting D stance and understand when to go battle. I think some warriors are a little scared to go battle, and that's why they see themselves getting outdamaged by a lot of teams. It's more of a learning experience when to go battle and when to go D-stance, but we'll save that for another video, I guess. But D-stance all the way. So level 40, this is the dumbest row. And in my opinion, this row needs to get changed because I hate it so much. There's only one good pick, and that's Warbreaker. But versus some teams where you literally can't get a double Warbreaker, it's completely useless, and all it does is make it so your cooldown has a chance to miss. Also, everybody uses weak auras this expansion, and they all have it tied to Warbreaker. So sometimes it's actually not bad to spec out of it to like maybe collateral damage, so their add-ons don't fucking light up on the screen. But I've never done it. I really think Warbreaker is just insane, and to play that, that's the best. So 45, Avatar. Okay, Avatar is just the best. You can't give it up. You need to be Avatar. Okay, In for the Kill is, it's kind of good. I want to try it some games, but like I said, games are so fast paced that Avatar is just too much to pass up. It's also really good versus mages, having an instant root break, because this expansion they took it off the global, so you can instantly Avatar Warbreaker. It's really nice, and having an instant root break is again super good versus mages, super good versus survival hunters, anything with root basically. So lastly we have 50 row. It's Dreadnought. I haven't really tried anger management that much. I think Dreadnought is just so good. Overpower does so much damage with the conduit. Having the increased damage is also really good. This expansion, you can actually kill rogues from like 50% through evasion with this. Because Dreadnought having 2 stacks of overpower, dealing more damage, it's actually insane damage. You can force out Vanish even when they press evasion at 50%. It's actually crazy good. So there's the talents, and now let's go into honor talents. So honor talents are kind of hard to explain because they're good in some situations, and you're gonna have to figure out what ones are actually good for what your comp you're playing, what comp you're playing against. So I'll tell you which ones are good and which ones I never really use, and try to give you some examples. But again, you're gonna have to play these and see how you like it into some different teams and learn it that way. So starting with Master and Commander. So they did nerf it a little bit. This expansion, it was reducing it by 2 minutes. It's 1 minute. Still really strong with another conduit. I think Master and Commander is really good in 3s. Not so much in 2s. I really don't really care about rally cooldown in 2s. But in 3s, this is actually really good if you have nothing else to pick. So maybe sometimes you don't want, disarm or something. Master and Commander might be good. Shadow of the Colossus. This thing's trash. Never use this. This one's terrible. Never ever use this. I don't even know why it's still in the game. Storm of Destruction. This one's also trash. Never use this in arena. This one's more of an RBG thing. In arena, this is complete garbage. I've never played it. You know, maybe Anger Management, Storm of Destruction, Unhinged, Legendary might be good. That's kind of a meme build. I wouldn't really go for meme builds, but generally, this is not played in arena. War Banner, obviously a really good cooldown. It, you know, reduces incoming crowd control on your team. And it has a very high skill cap for use. So if you're maybe a little lower rated warrior and you don't really want to use War Banner because of its high skill cap, that's okay. You don't need it. Half the time you don't need it. Although I do think it's really good versus teams like jungles, rogue mages, all that kind of things. It does have a 30-yard radius, which is kind of bad because healers play 40 yards away from you sometimes. So when you do have a War Banner, like let's say versus jungle, and you want to banner a trap, you have to tell your healer to play close because you have banner and you want to banner a trap. So just keep that in mind. It's 30 yard, not 40 yard. And it does have a little bit of a delay when you throw it down, so you have to use it a little early. Sharpen is just pretty much always good. I think it's always good. Depending on what comp you're playing, sometimes I don't play it versus, you know, rogue mage, and I'll play more defensive, but it really depends on what comp you're playing. But I think Sharpen is just always good. No matter what you fight, it'll be good. Next, we have Duel. And Duel really hasn't seen that much play until this expansion because of Ret Warrior. This is really strong into teams like into Rets, into some Fire Mages. So you can dual combust, you can dual wings. It has very high use. And for example, I'd play Duel into Ret Warrior teams because I can intervene parry most of the damage, come out with a duel while I sit D-stance. My Ret will be okay. Really strong versus Fire Mages, really strong versus Rets. That's where I would recommend it. Next, we have Disarm. Disarm is just the go-to versus other warriors, rogues, and it is just a staple of warrior in general. And anything you can disarm, it is really, really strong. I wouldn't pick it versus BM hunters. I wouldn't pick it versus rats or monks because they can do damage with during disarm, and it doesn't do that much. But versus warriors, rogues, hunters, really, really strong. All right, so Demolition, this talent kind of got nerfed recently, so it doesn't actually do damage beyond the shields anymore. I have never really liked this talent. I barely ever play it. I think it's completely useless. You know, you can try it maybe into Warlock teams, some Mistweaver teams. It might be good. That's really up to you. I think there's just better talents to pick than this, and I never play it. But it's good in some situations, and that you're going to have to find out on your own. Death Sentence. So, Death Sentence, I actually don't play that much in threes. Sometimes I'll play it. I really don't think it's that good in threes because you mainly want a lot of utility. But in twos, I love this talent, and I pretty much always play it. It is incredible for getting kills because getting kited during execute range is really annoying. But this talent, super good. I think it's good versus any target that has high mobility, like in twos, but again, in threes, I don't play it as much. And that goes the same with Warbringer. So Warbringer is a new talent that does damage and roots them. So at first glance, you're like, who cares about a root, you know? It actually does a lot of damage. If you have all your cooldowns up, this thing pumps like 18k, which if you charge them with all your cooldowns up, and they're at like, 50%, that'll hit them into execute range. So if you charge them at 50% and you're spamming execute, you'll boom, connect with a Warbringer into an execute instantly from 50%. It is insane, unexpected burst, and it's super good in twos. I love playing this versus high mobility targets with low armor, like Demon Hunters, Windwalkers, Rusted Druids, that kind of thing. And, sometimes I'll play versus some Druids and stuff, like Pharaohs. But this thing's insane in twos. In threes, not so much. I think it's okay for some DH melee teams, but realistically, again, like in threes, you mainly want like high utility things like Warbanner, Sharpen, Disarm, Duel, Master and Commander, all those types of things. Those are the talents that I'll mainly play in threes. All right, we are now here in Oribos to discuss the big question. What I get asked the most, what covenant is best for Warrior? So we're going to take a look at all the covenants and see what their strengths are, and come to a conclusion which ones are best in each bracket. Starting with threes, which covenant is best? I think Kyrian and Necrolord are both S tier. No matter what covenant you play, each of them are going to be good. They queue sometimes a little different comps, like Necro might be better as some, Kyrian might be better as some, but overall, I think they're both extremely strong covenants to pick, the other two being the weaker links, and I would recommend going Necrolord or Kyrian. For most of this video, it's going to be off of Necrolord because that's what I play, although it's pretty much the same thing as Kyrian. So for twos, which is actually better in twos? Without a doubt, Kyrian. Kyrian having an 8-second spear in twos is insane. It lets you kill things like Wrestler Druids. You'll have a little bit of a tough time versus BM Hunters, but most Kyrian warriors just kill healers anyways. And I just think Kyrian's just way better than Necro in twos. Although doing carries, I would rather be a Necro. Having increased tankiness, added burst, it is really nice. That's why when you see me play with viewers, I love being Necro. Because the amount of damage and burst you can do as Necro is way higher than anything you can do for Kyrian. But overall, Kyrian's the best in threes. But for RBGs, I don't really know which is better. I think they're both good. Maybe Necro's better if you play with like a Ret Paladin on your team, or maybe a DK, because you basically want to banner your teammates. So if you have a Ret or a DK on your team, bannering them, really good. But if you don't, you have to do some weird, awkward, like leaping out on top of a caster to banner them. It's just a little weird. Kyrian's also really good for spearing people and having your FC run. Really strong. Again, the other two kind of lose a lot of value in RBGs as well as the other brackets. So I would recommend just playing either Necro or Kyrian. Play both and find which one you actually find the most fun. They're both S tier. No matter what you play, you won't be making a bad choice. Now let's go over stats. So the stats are pretty simple for Arms Warrior. The general rule is if it has versatility and does not have mastery, it's a good piece of gear. The reason you don't want to stack mastery and verse is because crit and haste are both stats that increase rage generation. Mastery does not. So whatever you go, if you want to go haste or full crit, they're both good. For example, I am Necrolord, so I'm more on haste, although it's harder to get haste to stack up because of how it works. These are my stats as Necrolord, and it's mainly into haste because it stacks with your Enduring Legendary, and I'll go over Legendaries right after this. But if you're Kyrian, you might want to go more on the crit side, but if you want to go haste, it's really up to you. The stats are up to you. I would go at least 10% haste on Kyrian, and then the rest into crit, and as Necro, I'd go for all of the haste you can get. So for gems, there are two gems that you're going to want for sockets. And it's this one right here for increased speed. And then there's the movement speed one right here. Those two are essential. The rest are really up to you. If you want to go for verse, you can put verse in. If you want to go crit, you can go crit. If you want to put some haste in, that's really up to you. For enchants, you're going to want the 15 strength on your gloves, the Sinful Revelation on your weapon, 20 stamina, minor speed on your cloak, and the 30 stats on your chest, with the enchants on your rings really up to what you want to stack. See, I was a little low on crit, and I wanted my crit to be a little higher because it's easier to stack up. So I enchanted some crit here and put a gem of crit right here as well. So, but if you're a little lower, you might want to go into more verse, more haste. It really depends what stats you're missing. For trinkets, if you're orc, you're going to want medallion on all the time. It's your trinket. And then for the damage one, you can go for badge. I think badge is the best, and it's what I play, playing Ret Warrior. Not a lot of targets attack me, so I don't need a defensive one. Although, if you find yourself in a situation where you do want to play Emblem, that is a good alternative versus like rogue mages, jungles, all those types of setup cleaves. Having it is really, really helpful. You can also Emblem Fleshcraft and get a bigger shield. Also really good. I don't really like Insignia. You know, if you want to play it, you can. Maybe it's okay. But I find badge just to be better in general. Alright, so now let's go over Legendaries. Which Legendaries are actually the best? So the thing about Warrior is You want multiple legendaries, in my opinion, and it's kind of annoying doing that much Torghast on your character. But if you don't want to do that much Torghast, at least have Enduring Blow on the helmet with Haste Verse on it. This is the best legendary, and why you stack a lot of Haste is because Haste lowers the cooldown of Mortal Strike. More Mortal Strikes equals more procs of this. Your Mortal Strike has a 25% chance to apply the Colossus Smash effect to the target for 6 seconds. And this actually stacks. So if you Warbreaker and then Mortal Strike and it procs, it'll stack it on top of it. This is also really good because a lot of people are disarming Warbreaker instantly, so you don't get that much value out of it. This legendary lets you. Some alternative legendaries would be the Misshapen Mirror one on your chest with Haste Verse on it. Make sure to re-enchant it, of course. This one's good for some Caster Cleaves if you're playing 2s, some BM Hunters to reflect the traps, and some CC. It's really good for doing carries as well, so you'll sometimes see me play this. And the last one is Unhinged. So Unhinged, I don't get to play that much in 3s, but in 2s, I think it's really strong for doing insane single target burst, even though it's you can use it for cleave, because if you actually sweeping and then do the Blade Storm, it'll hit, the Mortal Strikes will cleave. So this is also really good for some teams that you want to play really bursty into. I sometimes play it versus Resto Druids. I don't think it's as good as Enduring, because Enduring's just overall the best, but it's a good alternative if you want to try it out. And of course, if you do have Unhinged, you want crit on it because it's bursty. For Kyrian Warriors, you're going to want Elysian Might. This is your best legendary as a Kyrian Warrior. And you want to put it on your legs with Crit Verse. This is your go-to legendary for all situations. It is almost always good. I probably would never swap out of this legendary personally. I think it is too strong to give up in terms of damage and utility. And it's the main reason why Warriors or Kyrian Warriors are so dominant in 2s. This legendary owns. Alright, so we are here at the seat of the Primus to discuss Soulbinds and Conduits. I apologize, I can't go over the other covenants because all my warriors are Necrolord, and I really haven't played Kyrian all that much this season, so I feel I don't have as much of the knowledge as I do as Necrolord. So, for Soulbinds, it's pretty simple. Okay, Plague Divisor is the best for damage and defensive. You can try maybe this one for this proc if you really find yourself dying to some, I mean, maybe like example would be like a one dance dual sub rogue. Maybe this might be good, although I do think Plague Divisor is overall the best, and this will be your main cookie cutter build for, this is what I play for 2s. Mortal Combo is the best. Stalwart Guardian is the best. These are both must-haves. And Veterans of Pute is also extremely strong. Safeguard, extremely strong. And Crash the Ramparts, extremely strong. So this is the path that I'll take for this. Now, it's down here. The second finesse is really up to you. I really like this one for 2s. In 3s, I'll play Inspiring. So, and then sometimes if you're playing Impending Victory, you want to switch over here to get this Conduit as well. Really strong. But anyways, this is the main build that you're going to go. Why it's better is because Volatile Solvent, just getting mastery from Flesh Crafting, is really strong. The Frictionless Coating is nerfed in PvP, but it's still a decent shield. The immunity and heal, not too crazy. I mean, it's kind of good, but not really crazy. Kevin is where it's OP. So Kevin comes up for 40 seconds after using Banner, increasing your damage by 6%. This Conduit is also why you see so many Necrolords doing crazy damage, is because their Banner just increases their strength by 20% as well. And I don't think a lot of people know this. Another thing to point out is that Safeguard, even though Intervene is nerfed in PvP, Safeguard still lasts the full duration of 6 seconds. So Intervene is actually 3 seconds in PvP, but Safeguard is still a 6-second wall, which is huge. So let's go over add-ons and macros real quick. So for macros, I have a link to all my add-ons and macros in my Discord. You can see them all there. But some of the big ones that you might want will be the Intervene ones, of course. Putting your healer's name in this Intervene macro, as well as your DPS right here. And then having a mouse over one is also extremely useful to to just have in the open world, and just sometimes if you forget to put your healers in here, really good. Another one would be Focus Heroic Throw, really nice to have for keeping people in combat. Freedom, this one's just for removing a bunch of buffs that I don't want, so Thorns, you know, Bop, Freedom, all that kind of stuff that I don't want mages to take. Sweeping Strikes, so I don't break CC. A Taunt macro, also really good. But you can see all my macros in my Discord. The link will be in the description, of course. And for add-ons, I think add-ons are more preference and not really something I can help you out with. But some big ones that I think will be useful is big debuffs, also really good. Gladius, really good. Omnibar is pretty helpful. And I think the biggest one that most people want is Weak Auras. So this expansion, Weak Auras has never been so useful, because before you see a cooldown and react with a cooldown to how much damage they're dealing, but this expansion cooldowns and damage is so high, you have to instantly react to a cooldown with a cooldown. So Warbreaker, you have to disarm it instantly. Wings, you're going to have to use Dome. You got to use Intervene Parry. You have to instantly use it. So I think Weak Auras is probably the most useful add-on. And first, when you do download Weak Auras, you should probably get Arena CDs 2. This one is on the Weak Aura website. I believe Mez made this one. It shows all the cooldowns, Pod Tender, Seraphim, Grounding, fucking Sky Fury, Divine Toll, Chill Streak, all that kind of stuff that lets you, you know, visually see what is happening in the arena. All right, anyways, guys, I think that about does it. This was more of a guide for the basics of setting up your character, and you should be good to go to queue arenas. If you did like this video, please give it a like, and if you want to see anything in the future, put it down in the comments below. I do read all the comments, and I do have some plans to make some guides on, you know, burst rotation and how to set up your burst, or maybe some comps if you're struggling against. I would like to do some how to fight guides, I guess, in the future. So if anything you want to see, just leave it in the comments. But I think that'll do it. Thanks for watching, guys.